Which franchise has produced the greatest all-time ball carriers? Going back from the earliest days of pro football to the stars we see today, let's rank the NFL's running back rooms from worst to best. Number 32, the Houston Texans. We'll kick it off with the league's most recent team. Frankly, the history's just not there yet. But if you're talking Texans runners, the conversation starts with this guy.
Foster, down the sideline. Foster, still running. Coach, put me in the game. Touchdown!
Arian Foster went from undrafted to All-Pro in just his second season. The Tennessee product is the team's all-time leader in touchdowns, racking up more than Andre Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins. Foster led the NFL in rushing in 2010 and outpaced the entire league in total touchdowns from 2010 to 2012. A steep drop-off from there as we get to Dominic Williams, then known as Dominic Davis. He played just 3 years in the NFL after a knee injury derailed his career. Yet Williams still ranks second in franchise history in rushing. He totaled nearly 4,500 yards from scrimmage in his first 3 seasons.
So now Lamar Miller able to get out of the hole. Miller, could he? Vaccaro's chasing. Lamar Miller all the way. Wire to wire. 97 yards of glory.
The longest run in Texans history belongs to this man. After starting his career in Miami, Lamar Miller signed with Houston and produced 3 respectable seasons, even making a Pro Bowl in 2018. Miller had over 1,100 yards in every season he played with the Texans. Number 31, the Carolina Panthers. Call them Smash and Dash or Double Trouble. The duo of D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart highlight the Panthers' all-time running back room. We'll begin with Williams, who had a slow start to his NFL career, but the first-round pick erupted in 2008 with a league-high 20 touchdowns.
Williams will cut it to the outside, pick up a first down. He scored 3 touchdowns tonight, and you can make it 4.
His 1,515 rushing yards that year are still a club record. Williams played 9 seasons in Carolina and ranks second only to Stewart in franchise rushing yards. The Panthers took the bruising running back in the first round just 2 years after Williams. Stewart scored 21 touchdowns over his first 2 campaigns. Never the flashiest, Stewart just got the job done.
Against Stewart, who's inside the 10, inside the 5, and into the end zone. Carolina touchdown.
He produced 7 seasons with 700-plus rushing yards and made the Pro Bowl in 2015 during Carolina's Super Bowl run. Then we get to a recent cat-turned-49er, another first-round hit. Christian McCaffrey was undoubtedly the most talented back to ever suit up in Charlotte.
Give to McCaffrey, trying to get around the right side. He does. McCaffrey leaps, end zone, touchdown!
The numbers were off the charts. He racked up 39 touchdowns over his first 3 seasons, not to mention 303 total catches. In 2019, McCaffrey became just the 3rd player ever with 1,000 rushing yards and receiving yards in the same season. Don't forget the underrated Stephen Davis either, who powered Carolina all the way to Super Bowl 38. He rushed for over 1,400 yards in that magical season. Number 30, the Baltimore Ravens. One of only 8 players to rush for 2,000 yards in a single season, Jamal Lewis headlines this group of Ravens rushers.
And it's Jamal Lewis. Got an opening. I'd say he's going to get his touches. After 1, he has 6. Touchdown, 82 yards.
After winning a Super Bowl in his rookie season, Lewis took his game to new heights in 2003. He won Offensive Player of the Year, falling just short of the single-season rushing record. Lewis gained 1,000 yards on the ground in 5 different seasons with Baltimore. Moving on to Ray Rice, who also helped the Ravens capture a Lombardi back in 2012. Rice ranks second in team history in both rushing yards and touchdowns. He was named to the Pro Bowl 3 times and totaled the most scrimmage yards in the NFL from 2009 to 2012.
Shotgun formation for Flacco. 1:59 to go. This is your ball game for Baltimore. Flacco in the pocket.
Dump off. Rice has some room, but can he really get to that first down line? Rice stays on his feet. Oh, Ray Rice! Incredible!
Willis McGahee had a fantastic start to his Ravens stint, earning a Pro Bowl nod in 2007. He scored 35 touchdowns in his 4 years there, none better than this one.
Stiff arm knocks the defender down. Knocks down Hiram Eugene, and McGahee's taken it the distance.
McGahee is still third all-time in rushing scores for Baltimore. A quick shout-out to the Priest. A young Priest Holmes hit the 1,000-yard mark in 1998, then won a Super Bowl with Lewis on that 2000 team. Not bad for an undrafted free agent. Number 29, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've been around since 1976, but running back hasn't been the strongest position for this franchise. The late 90s were the peak with the two-headed monster of Warwick Dunn and Mike Allstott.
The 48-yard line. With a swing toss out to Dunn. And Dunn stays in bounds and goes all the way for a touchdown.
Dunn was electric from the start in Tampa, winning Offensive Rookie of the Year in 1997. Sadly, he departed just before that Super Bowl team in 2002. But he still made 2 Pro Bowls with the Bucs, totaling almost 8,000 yards in 6 seasons. One of the most dynamic players in NFL history, Mike Allstott, was a unicorn in every sense.
At the Saints 26. Allstott, no hole, trying to slip his way out, gets outside. Look at those moves by the big man. He's still going. Unbelievable.
Allstott played his entire 11-year career in Tampa, making 6 Pro Bowls and 3 first-team All-Pro selections. Yes, he was listed at fullback, but don't get it wrong. The A-Train could pound the rock. Allstott scored 51 times from 1997 to 2002 and still holds the team record for career rushing touchdowns.
From the eye, pitch back, Wilder fumbles, but he retains it, picks up the first down, still on his feet, to the 20, to the 15, to the 10, and is in! Touchdown!
Did you know James Wilder still owns the record for total touches in a season? He racked up 492 of them back in 1984. Wilder is the franchise leader in rushing and gained nearly 6,000 yards from scrimmage from 1983 to 1986. How about a couple standout rookies with Doug Martin and Cadillac Williams? The latter won Rookie of the Year in 2005 with close to 1,200 rushing yards, while Martin exploded onto the scene with almost 2,000 yards from scrimmage in his 2012 debut season.
Is there anything number 22 can't do?
Number 28, the New England Patriots. Crazy to think that a team founded in 1960 could be this low, right? But we're not ready to totally discount the Pats here. They have depth and a few gems, albeit for shorter stretches.
Jim Nance, Boston's dynamic fullback, leaves tacklers talking to themselves. He rips through and scores. A Big Bo is on the go.
Jim Nance, not this Jim Nance, led the AFL in rushing twice in the late 60s, and he was named Player of the Year in 1966. Nance is still the team's all-time leader in rushing touchdowns after all these years. Sam Bam Cunningham was another fantastic power back for the Patriots in the 1970s. He played 10 seasons in New England, topping the list of all-time rushing yards with the team.
Sam Cunningham exploded for a 75-yard touchdown run on the game's first play from scrimmage, and the Patriots seem to be in high gear.
Perhaps the Patriots would be higher on this countdown had the legendary Curtis Martin been around a little longer. The future Hall of Famer played just 3 seasons in New England, but boy did he make them count.
Give to Curtis Martin, up the middle inside the 10, juking inside down to the 5, spinning outside, turning the corner, touchdown!
Martin made 2 Pro Bowls and was a pivotal piece to the Patriots' 96 AFC Championship team. He scored 32 touchdowns over his first 2 NFL seasons and won 1995 Offensive Rookie of the Year. Let's not forget Tony Collins, a vital playmaker for the club in the 80s. Collins produced 4 seasons with at least 1,000 yards from scrimmage. Longtime Bengal Corey Dillon made an immediate impact for the Pats, gaining over 1,600 yards on the ground in their 2004 title defense. To this day, no player in team history has more rushing yards in a single season. Adding in a couple recent contributors, starting with LeGarrette Blount, whose 18 rushing touchdowns topped all NFL players in 2016.
You're the greatest, and you're the greatest.
Blount won 2 Super Bowls with the Patriots, while James White earned 3 rings of his own. White hauled in a Super Bowl record 14 catches and scored the game winner in that 28-3 comeback.
Toss sweep right for James White. Tucks it under the right arm. Cuts it upfield. Driving forward. Diving to the goal line. A touchdown and a title for the Patriots.
Number 27, the Cincinnati Bengals. We're on to Cincinnati now, and we'll hit a player we just mentioned. Corey Dillon is without question the team's best ever runner and has the numbers to back it up. 1,100 yards in each of his first 6 seasons, and he broke Walter Payton's 23-year-old record for rushing yards in a single game.
And Dillon takes it inside the 20, runs over another guy. He's going in again.
He just made the National Football League all-time record for one-day performance. Corey Dillon has had the kind of day dreams are made of.
Dillon had the 3rd most rushing yards in the NFL from 1997 to 2002. Moving on to James Brooks, a dynamo for Cincy in the late 80s. He made 4 Pro Bowls, 3 of them after age 30.
Comes back at the 50 to the 45, down to the 40 on the far side of the field. And he's going to be running. No, he's still 20, 15, 10, 5-yard line, still on his feet, plunging, touchdown.
Always a home run threat, Brooks averaged at least 5 yards per carry in 4 different seasons. He put together 5 campaigns with over 1,200 yards from scrimmage and helped the Bengals get to Super Bowl 23. Brooks was actually traded to Cincinnati for the seldom discussed Pete Johnson. Before bolting for San Diego, Johnson scored a whopping 70 touchdowns during his 7-year Bengals career. That's the most in team history, regardless of position.
Griffin in motion on his 2nd and 9. Here comes Pete Johnson. He's got some running room. Johnson to the 25. His 2nd touchdown of the day.
Johnson played in Super Bowl 16 with Cincinnati and scored the 2nd most touchdowns in the league from 1977 to 1983. Rudy Johnson holds the franchise mark for rushing yards in a season. In a phenomenal 3-year stretch from 2004 to 2006, Johnson produced over 4,500 total yards and 36 touchdowns. Gotta talk about Joe Mixon, another Super Bowl back in Tiger stripes. Mixon scored 62 touchdowns in his first 7 years. And finally, we have the inventor of the Ickey Shuffle. Ickey Woods' rookie season was something out of a fairy tale. He racked up 15 scores in 1988, playing a huge part with the AFC champions. Number 26, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Freddie T and MJD, 2 elite ball carriers, pushed the Jags into this spot. Taylor leads the team in career rushing yards with over 11,000, one of the most underrated players in league history. He made just a single Pro Bowl in his 13-year career.
Draw play, Taylor skips 2 tackles, and here we go! Yeah. Bye-bye, Brock Marion chasing. Brock Marion still chasing. Gets help from Smith, touchdown, no flags. A 90-yard run.
Taylor scored 37 touchdowns in his first 3 seasons and posted 6 campaigns with over 1,200 rushing yards. While Taylor has the most yards, it's Maurice Jones-Drew who leads all Jaguars in total touchdowns. The undersized phenom scored 81 of them in just 8 seasons, and if you wanted all-purpose, this was your guy.
They come blitzing again, Archuleta. The throw is complete to Drew. And Maurice Jones-Drew up the middle all the way for a touchdown.
MJD amassed over 13,000 all-purpose yards with the Jags. In 2011, he was named first-team All-Pro after leading the NFL in rushing. Pretty potent duo right there. But then comes a big drop all the way down to James Stewart. He was a member of Jacksonville's inaugural draft class back in 1995. Stewart was a solid hand, scoring 9+ touchdowns in 3 different seasons. In 1997, he set the team record with 5 touchdowns in a single game.
It would be his 5th, and it is his 5th touchdown of the game.
Leonard Fournette was drafted with big-time expectations in 2017. The 4th overall pick averaged over 100 total yards per game in his 3 seasons in Duval. Another first-round rusher came along in 2021 with Travis Etienne making an early splash. The Clemson product has gained close to 3,000 yards from scrimmage in his first 2 years. Number 25, the New Orleans Saints.
Breeze look deep, covered, comes back Kamara, made a man miss, Alvin Kamara across midfield, still on his feet. Kamara's got a bunch of room and some blockers, hurdling a blocker at the 25, inside the 50, what a run by Kamara, who's all the way in for a touchdown. touchdown!
The list of all-time Saints backs starts with Alvin Kamara. The dual threat has been lights out since he stepped onto the field in 2017, making 5 straight Pro Bowls to start his career. Kamara is one of only 4 players in the league with 10,000 yards from scrimmage since 2017. He scored an NFL-high 21 touchdowns in 2020, including 6 in one game.
Rushing yards per game, the big difference. And here's more. Ingram, what a move. Mark Ingram, touchdown New Orleans.
Before Kamara, there was this man. Mark Ingram leads all Saints in career rushing yards for now. The former Heisman Trophy winner was a first-round pick in 2011. Ingram scored at least 5 touchdowns in 7 different seasons, making 2 Pro Bowls in New Orleans. Deuce McAllister seemed to fly under the radar during the golden age of running backs in the NFL. You had guys like Marshall Faulk, Shaun Alexander, Jamal Lewis, Priest Holmes shattering the record books. But down in NOLA, Deuce was quietly producing at a high level.
Deuce McAllister.
McAllister racked up over 2,100 total yards in 2003. He made 2 Pro Bowls with the Saints and sits top 3 on the club's all-time rushing list. Who remembers these guys? Dalton Hilliard scored the most touchdowns in the league in 1989. George Rogers led the NFL in rushing as a rookie in 1981. Reuben May's debut campaign resulted in an Offensive Rookie of the Year award, and we should mention Darren Sproles, who gained over 5,500 all-purpose yards in 3 seasons with the Saints. Number 24, the Atlanta Falcons. We'll stay in the South for our next group of rushers. Michael Turner is considered one of the best free agent signings in team history.
With Turner back in the backfield, he's the ball carrier, skirts around a hole, has a first down and more across midfield. There goes the burner. LT, I can do it by myself.
Turner played in Atlanta for just 5 years, but leads the franchise in career rushing touchdowns. He gained over 1,300 yards on the ground in 3 separate seasons, even finishing second in MVP voting in 2008. The workhorse back led the NFL in carries twice and made 2 Pro Bowls. Gerald Riggs had a sensational stretch of football from 1984 to 1987.
Riggs up the middle, first down, he breaks through. Gerald Riggs on his way, 20, 10, 5, touchdown Atlanta!
Only Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson averaged more rushing yards per game in that span. Riggs also averaged 106 yards from scrimmage per game from 1984 to 1987, making 3 straight Pro Bowls in the process. He remains the club's all-time leading rusher almost 40 years after his playing days. It took Riggs 3 seasons before he saw regular playing time, and that's because he was sitting behind the great William Andrews.
Under some pressure, swings it out. The wide open man's William Andrews. He gets across at 20, 25. William Andrews breaks away, 40. He's at midfield. Denver territory, 30-yard line. William Andrews is going to go the distance. Andrews, touchdown, Atlanta.
The 4-time Pro Bowler was off and running as soon as he was drafted. From 1979 to 1983, no player in the league had more total yards than Andrews. Not Peyton, not Campbell, not Dorsett. He amassed an NFL-high 2,036 yards from scrimmage in 1981. Sadly, a knee injury cut his career short, or else we're probably talking about a Hall of Famer. Jamal Anderson and the 1998 Dirty Bird Falcons shocked the football world by getting to Super Bowl 33. Anderson rushed for a team record 1,846 yards that year. Warrick Dunn is 4th on the team's all-time rushing list. He had a career year in 2005 with over 1,400 yards. And most recently, there's 2-time Pro Bowler Devonta Freeman. He scored 35 touchdowns from 2015 to 2017, tied for most in the NFL. Number 23, the New York Jets.
Martin, right side, following the block, breaks through to the 5. Touchdown!
We mentioned the great Curtis Martin briefly in New England, but his Hall of Fame career was solidified with the Mean Green. Martin is the team's all-time leader in rushing yards and touchdowns. He made All-Pro at age 31, winning the 2004 NFL rushing title. Martin played 8 seasons in New York. In that span, he averaged close to 1,600 yards from scrimmage per year.
Here's McNeil, right side, stutter stepping through line, breaks away the 20, the 15, the 10, the 5, touchdown, New York Jets, Freeman McNeil.
Freeman McNeil showed flashes of greatness with the Jets. He made 3 Pro Bowls in his first 5 seasons and was a model of consistency. 7 campaigns with over 600 rushing yards and 4 with 1,200 yards from scrimmage. McNeil played his entire 12-year career in New York.
Emerson Boozer, number 32, seems to get better every year. Boozer has a very quick start and consistently is a dangerous trap-type runner who can make the abrupt cut once through the holes, and when in top physical form, is one of the best young runners in the game.
Emerson Boozer was a key component for the Jets in the 60s and 70s. He led the AFL with 13 touchdowns in 1967 and tied for an NFL high 14 scores in 1972. Like McNeil, Boozer played his whole career with Mean Green and won a Super Bowl in 1968, as did Matt Snell. In fact, he was the only Jet player to score in that 16-7 upset win. Snell was an instant sensation, winning AFL Rookie of the Year in 1964. Thomas Jones led a potent ground game for the Jets in the late 2000s. He had 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons from 2007 to 2009. And don't forget John Riggins before he was the Diesel in Washington. Riggins was a Pro Bowler for New York in 1975. Number 22, the Las Vegas Raiders. One man sits at the head of this table here. Can you take a guess?
Plunkett giving to Allen, sending him wide left. He has to reverse his field, but he gets away for a moment. Comes back up the middle of the 30, 25, 40. Breaks past 2 men at the 50, down to the 40. Picking up a blocker. Holy Toledo! Touchdown Raiders! 7-4.
Marcus Allen was a star from the time he stepped between the white lines in 1982. He won Offensive Rookie of the Year and went on to score 57 touchdowns in his first 4 seasons. After winning Super Bowl 18 MVP, Allen won NFL MVP in 1985, leading the league in rushing. He made 5 Pro Bowls with the Raiders and holds team records for career rushing yards and touchdowns. Consistency was the key to Mark Van Egen's game. He played every game from 1976 to 1980, totaling over 6,300 yards from scrimmage. Van Egen won 2 Super Bowls with the Silver and Black and has the second most rushing scores in team history.
Jacobs with running room right up the middle. Jacobs is on his way. The Raiders are going to win this game.
Josh Jacobs was a stalwart in the Raider backfield since getting picked in the first round of the 2019 draft. Jacobs has touched the ball over 1,500 times in 5 seasons. He won the 2022 NFL rushing title and scored 40 total touchdowns over his first 4 campaigns.
And Bo Jackson to the 20 and out in front, and only one man to beat, and easily can't run him down. He had the angle, but there goes Bo, and nobody catches Bo. Touchdown.
Maybe the most athletic player to ever grace the gridiron, Bo Jackson's career can be summed up in 2 words. What if? Clem Daniels has the 3rd most rushing yards in team history and was a member of that Super Bowl II backfield. And Pete Banaszak scored 16 rushing touchdowns in 1975, tied for most in the NFL. He's 2nd in Raiders history in that category. Number 21, the Miami Dolphins. We'll start with the only Hall of Fame back in Dolphins history, the one and only Larry Zonka. The 5-time Pro Bowler was known for being a bruiser, but he actually led the NFL in yards per carry from 1971 to 1972.
Third quarter when they've had the ball, which hasn't been much. Another big hole open. Going through is Zonka, the 40, 30, just belted one man out of the way.
Zonka was the best player on the only team to go undefeated for a full season. The following year, he was named Super Bowl VIII MVP, a legendary career in South Florida. Trailing only Zonka on Miami's all-time rushing list is Ricky Williams. In 5 full seasons with the Fins, Williams gained over 6,400 yards on the ground. He had a mind-boggling 872 total touches from 2002 to 2003, the most in the NFL.
He may pass him on this run. Yes, he does. Green and Brown in pursuit. Forget about it.
Williams was named first-team All-Pro in 2002 when he won the NFL rushing title. Going back a few decades for Zonka's running mate on those powerhouse Dolphin teams, Mercury Morris was named to 3 Pro Bowls in his 7 years in South Beach. Morris had the most rushing scores in the league in 1972, then paced the NFL with 6.4 yards per carry in 1973.
I started out in a kid's backyard playing touch football. And I never abandoned the principle from the time I came to the pros. If they can't touch you, they can't tackle you.
Teammates are a theme with this collection. Ronnie Brown joined Ricky Williams in 2005 and had over 6,300 total yards in 6 seasons with the Dolphins. Jim Kick, the third member of that perfect backfield, made 2 Pro Bowls and gained 1,000 total yards in each of his first 4 seasons. Number 20, the Kansas City Chiefs. You won't find a bunch of Hall of Famers here, but KC has a ton of depth in their all-time running back room.
Continue to try to get in the end zone. Green underneath to Holmes, running room, 15, 10, 5, touchdown! My, oh my, Priest Holmes!
We challenge you to find a more productive stretch from a running back. From 2001 to 2004, Priest Holmes scored a staggering 76 total touchdowns, not to mention over 7,600 yards from scrimmage. Holmes won Offensive Player of the Year in 2002 and ranks first all-time in career rushing touchdowns with Kansas City.
3rd and 1 for Kansas City. Smith, take the run, the throw to Jamal Charles, and Charles now a foot race. Goodbye! It's touchdown number 5.
Jamal Charles was at his peak in 2013, leading the NFL with 19 total touchdowns. He sits at the top of the rushing list for all KC ball carriers, and his 5.4 career yards per carry is an NFL all-time record. The speedy back was named All-Pro twice and had 5 seasons with 1,000 rushing yards. We mentioned Holmes, but many forget the man who replaced him.
Johnson breaks a tackle from Edwards. Oh, look at him pile drive his way in.
Picking up right where Priest left off was Larry Johnson. In a dominant stretch from 2005 to 2006, Johnson amassed close to 4,300 total yards and 40 touchdowns. He had 457 touches in 2006 alone. LJ ranks top 3 in both rushing yards and touchdowns in Chiefs history. Rookie phenom Abner Hayes took the AFL by storm, winning Player of the Year back when they were the Dallas Texans. The Nigerian Nightmare, Christian Okoye, used his brute strength to win the NFL rushing title in 1989. Longevity was the key to Marcus Allen's game. The future Hall of Famer scored 47 total touchdowns with KC, all after turning 33 years of age. Super Bowl champ Ed Podolak still holds the playoff record with 350 all-purpose yards in a single game in 1971. Mike Garrett scored the iconic 65 toss power trap play in Super Bowl IV, leading the Chiefs to their first Lombardi trophy. And Kareem Hunt led the NFL in rushing as a rookie, scoring 25 total touchdowns in his first 2 campaigns. Number 19, the Philadelphia Eagles.
With the championship riding on his shoulders, Steve Van Buren blast off right tackle for the game-winning touchdown.
That was the game-winning touchdown in the 1948 NFL Championship. Hall of Famer Steve Van Buren still has the most rushing scores in franchise history, nearly 75 years after his playing days. He was named All-Pro on 5 occasions and led the league in rushing 4 times. Van Buren was twice an NFL champ and scored 77 touchdowns from 1944 to 1951, most in the NFL.
Gives it off to McCoy. He's got running room. Steps over a man. He's at the 20. He's at the 15. 10, 5. Touchdown!
LaShawn McCoy was arguably the most talented back to ever suit up in Philly. Shady is the team's all-time rushing leader and had the most yards on the ground of any player from 2010 to 2014. McCoy led the NFL with 20 touchdowns in 2011, won the 2013 rushing crown, not to mention producing some of the nastiest jukes of all time.
He's back. He's looking. He goes over the middle. He completes it. Breaking a tackle. Westbrook at 40. 35, 30. Touchback to 25, 20. He's going. 10, 5. Touchdown!
Brian Westbrook caught 426 passes with the Eagles, the fourth most in team history. One of the greatest dual threat backs of his era, Westbrook leads the club in career yards from scrimmage. He made 2 Pro Bowls and led the NFL with over 2,100 total yards in 2007. Westbrook was a big piece of the Eagles' NFC title team in 2004, and just to put his production in perspective, only LaDainian Tomlinson had more yards from scrimmage from 2004 to 2008. Wilbert Montgomery is second on Philly's list in career rushing yards and touchdowns. He had over 2,000 total yards in 1979 and led the Birds to Super Bowl 15 a year later. Deuce Staley had 3 1,000-yard seasons and ranks in the top 5 for team rushing yards. Ricky Watters made the most of his 3 years in Philadelphia, putting up over 5,000 total yards and making 2 Pro Bowls in the process. Number 18, the Seattle Seahawks.
Touchdown Seahawks! And hand number 37 the record, Sean Alexander, with 28 touchdowns this season. His name goes into the NFL record books.
No player to that point had ever scored more touchdowns in a single season. Sean Alexander put up 28 of them in 2005, winning MVP and taking Seattle all the way to Super Bowl 40. He's the franchise leader in rushing yards and touchdowns and scored at least 16 times in every season from 2001 to 2005. One of the most potent stretches we've ever seen. Alexander also led the NFL in total rushing yards in that span.
Crowd silent now, as opposed to when the Saints have the ball. Oh, look at this run! What a run! Marshawn Lynch, still on his feet, has blockers now. He's dancing his way for the touchdown!
The Beast Quake, arguably the best run in NFL history, provided to us by the legendary Marshawn Lynch. Beast Mode scored 56 touchdowns from 2011 to 2014, the most in the league. The Skittles were flying in Seattle during the greatest era in team history. Lynch helped the Seahawks win their first Super Bowl and made 4 Pro Bowls in his Seahawks career. He rushed for more yards than any player from 2011 to 2014.
Seattle set to go with their first offensive play. Warner gets a pitch from Zorn, takes off around the left side, slips a tackle to the 25 up the sidelines, the 35-40. He might go all the way. He's at the 40. He's down the sideline.
Former number 2 overall pick Kurt Warner had a breakout rookie campaign with over 1,700 total yards. Unfortunately, a knee injury in year 2 changed the course of his career. Yet, in 6 full seasons played, Warner scored 62 touchdowns and made 3 Pro Bowls. As did Chris Warren, who quietly had 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons from 1992 to 1995. Only Emmett Smith and Barry Sanders had more rushing yards from 92 to 97. Before Ricky Watters was an Eagle, he was a playmaker in the Pacific Northwest. Watters had over 1,000 touches and 5,000 yards from scrimmage in his first 3 seasons with Seattle. And don't sleep on John Williams, the only player in team history with 4,000 rushing and receiving yards. Number 17, the Denver Broncos. With a couple Hall of Famers in the running back room, Denver gets a slight edge over Philly and Seattle.
He's behind Elway by himself. He takes the handoff, running left. Terrell breaks a tackle. He's got it. There it is. He has just become only the 4th player in NFL history to go over 2,000 yards in a single season.
One of 8 players in NFL history to rush for 2,000 yards in a single season, Terrell Davis was a machine for Denver in the late 90s. He won MVP in that 98 season and Super Bowl 32 MVP the year before. Davis was also the 1996 Offensive Player of the Year and a 2-time NFL rushing leader. No player had more yards on the ground from 96 to 98. Floyd Little sits just behind Davis on Denver's all-time rushing list. The Hall of Famer was electric in both the AFL and NFL. Little was named All-Pro in 1969, averaging 5 yards per carry. In 1971, he led the NFL in rushing, and in 1973, tied for the league lead in touchdowns.
To gain over 1,000 yards rushing is the golden accomplishment of a runner in pro football. Floyd is all-world to all Denver, and out of this world to empty-handed tacklers.
Little was named to 5 Pro Bowls or All-Star teams in his 9-year career. Sammy Winder was Denver's back in the 80s. He played in 3 Super Bowls and ranks 3rd in career rushing yards and touchdowns with the Broncos. Winder was named to the Pro Bowl twice and had over 1,400 total yards in 1984.
Portis. Inside the 10, inside the 5, into the end zone for another touchdown.
Clinton Portis was a monster in his 2 years with Denver. He won Offensive Rookie of the Year, putting up gaudy numbers. Close to 1,900 total yards and 17 touchdowns. In all, Portis racked up 31 scores with a 5.5 yards per carry average his first 2 seasons. Then there's Otis Armstrong, who won the 1974 NFL rushing title. He made 2 Pro Bowls in his 8-year Broncos career. Mike Anderson went from an unknown draft pick to a star in his debut season. He was named Offensive Rookie of the Year in 2000, rushing for almost 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns. Number 16, the Arizona Cardinals. We're going old school here, so let's drop some knowledge on a few pre-desert runners. First up, we have Ollie Matson. Matson played 6 seasons with the Cardinals, who were then in Chicago. He was named All-Pro in 5 of them. The future Hall of Famer would score 50 touchdowns from 1952 to 1958, the most in the league. He missed the 1953 season to serve in the Army. Talk about a legend.
Everybody in tight. Here's Anderson trying to give ground. LeMaster's over there, and what an effort. He's going to break it. Anderson's going to take it for the touchdown.
A few decades later, Otis Anderson came around for the St. Louis Cardinals. He won the 1979 Offensive Rookie of the Year award, gaining over 1,900 yards from scrimmage. Anderson is the franchise leader in career rushing yards and touchdowns. Between 1979 and 1984, only Walter Payton had more yards on the ground. Got another Hall of Famer here with Charlie Trippi. This guy could do it all. He played 5 different positions, including quarterback, DB, and punter. Trippi led the Cardinals to the 1947 NFL Championship, still the last title the franchise has ever won. He averaged 5.1 yards per carry over his 9-year NFL career.
And it's going to be Metcalf, and he's got it wide open to the 30. Jake Kyle can't get him. He's gone.
Before DK Metcalf and Eric Metcalf, there was Terry Metcalf. The 3-time Pro Bowler had the most combined all-purpose yards in the NFL from 1973 to 1977. He even finished top 3 in MVP voting 2 years in a row. Hall of Famer Ernie Nevers was an All-Pro in every season with the Chicago Cardinals. He's best known for scoring 40 points in a single game, 6 touchdowns, 4 extra points. Stump Mitchell had over 1,500 total yards at 5.5 yards per carry in 1985. He's second all-time in career rush yards with the club. Number 15, the Los Angeles Chargers.
From the 7-yard line of the Denver Broncos. And the handoff to Tomlinson. Left side, and he will gallop into the end zone. Charger fans are witnesses to history!
The list of Chargers' all-time great running backs begins with LT, perhaps the greatest player to ever play for the franchise. LaDainian Tomlinson was out of this world. 1,500-plus scrimmage yards in each of his first 8 seasons, 624 career catches, a 2-time NFL rushing leader, and 3rd all-time in career touchdowns. Tomlinson was at his best in his 2006 MVP year, scoring 31 total touchdowns, a single-season record. AFL great Paul Lowe still ranks 2nd in rushing yards in team history for now. Lowe helped San Diego win their first and only pro football title all the way back in 1963. He had 3 seasons with 1,200 total yards and led the AFL in rushing in 1965.
Quick flip for Eckler. Eckler inside his blocks. 40, 35, still on his feet, and gonna go the rest of the way.
He's not the biggest, not the flashiest, but Austin Eckler has the numbers to back up his place among all-time Chargers legends. Eckler had 38 touchdowns from 2021 to 2022, 12 more than any other NFL player in that span. 3 seasons with 1,500 total yards and the 4th most touchdowns in team history. He's one of just 5 running backs ever with 100 catches in a season. This Chargers list is deep, so hang with us. Chuck Muncie is number 2 on the team's all-time rushing touchdown list. He had a league-high 19 scores in 1981. Keith Lincoln won an AFL crown with Lowe back in the 60s. Melvin Gordon made 2 Pro Bowls in 5 years with the Bolts. So did Marion Butts, who also led the league in rushing yards per game in 1990. Big man Natron Means had over 1,300 yards in 1994, leading San Diego all the way to Super Bowl 29. And don't forget little Darren Sproles, who came up huge time and time again, nearly 10,000 all-purpose yards in 5 full seasons with the Chargers.
Here's Sproles. Sproles inside the 10, inside the 5, and the Chargers win the game.
Number 14, the Minnesota Vikings. Like the Chargers, Minnesota has a clear leader of the pack at running back position. Adrian Peterson was ready to dominate from day one. In just his 8th game ever, Peterson set the still-standing record for rush yards in a single game.
296 yards for Adrian Peterson, the greatest rushing performance in the history of the National Football League.
He was the clear-cut Offensive Rookie of the Year and would go on to make 7 Pro Bowls and 4 All-Pro teams. Coming off a serious knee injury, Peterson went on a tear in 2012, rushing for over 2,000 yards while taking home MVP. No player had more rush yards between 2007 and 2021. Greatness. Before Austin Eckler, Marshall Faulk, and Roger Craig, there was Chuck Foreman. Back in the 1970s, running backs weren't really used in the passing game. Nobody told the Vikings, though.
Fran rolls to the right, dumps it out, caught by Foreman, touchdown!
Chuck Foreman, number 44, set an NFL record for running backs with 73 catches for nearly 700 yards. By the end of the season, Chuck Foreman was closing in on the NFC Triple Crown.
Foreman averaged close to 50 catches per season in his 7 years with the Vikings. He was the 1973 Offensive Rookie of the Year and made 5 straight Pro Bowls to start his career. Foreman scored 51 total touchdowns from 1974 to 1976, most in the league.
Cook has had a big day, 115 yards and a touchdown. And you can add to the number here. Oh, beautiful spin move, and Cook takes it to the outside. Oh, what an effort! Dalvin Cook!
Dalvin Cook had to come back from a torn ACL in his rookie season to join this list of Vikings greats. He finally got on track in 2019 and would go on to make 4 straight Pro Bowls. Cook ranks 3rd on the club's all-time rushing list and scored 52 touchdowns in 73 career games in Minnesota. Robert Smith is rarely discussed among the great backs of the 90s, but don't forget how good this guy was. 2nd most rush yards in team history and 1,000 plus in each of his last 4 seasons at 5 yards per carry. The powerful Bill Brown was as tough as they come in the NFL's ground and pound era. Nobody in the league had more touches from 1963 to 1972. Brown put up close to 6,000 total yards from 64 to 68, 2nd most in the NFL. Number 13, the Washington Commanders. A couple Hall of Famers and a whole lot of depth. Washington has had its share of fine runners over the years.
There's the snap, hand to Riggins, good hold, he's got the first down to the 40, he's gone, the 35, the 30, the 20, he's gone, touchdown Washington Redskins!
We'll kick it off with John Riggins, who played 10 years in Washington, all the way to age 36. The Diesel powered the team to its first ever Super Bowl win in 1982, and followed that up with his best year ever in 1983, 24 rushing scores, a then single-season record. Riggins sits atop the franchise in career rushing yards and touchdowns. We mentioned Clinton Portis' stellar start in Denver. He picked up right where he left off after getting traded for Champ Bailey.
Portis, welcome to Washington. Clinton Portis, goodbye, touchdown.
Portis produced 4 seasons with 1,200 rushing yards in Washington. Only Riggins has more yards on the ground in team history. Portis totaled over 6,100 yards on the ground from 2004 to 2008, 2nd most in the league. We don't hear the name Larry Brown very much, but the Washington back won league MVP in 1972, taking his team all the way to Super Bowl 7.
Today, Larry Brown is the most courageous runner in football, and his body, like his spirit, is remarkably tough.
Brown had 1,100 yards from scrimmage in each of his first 5 seasons. He won the 1970 NFL rushing title and led the league with 14 touchdowns in 1973. Cliff Battles was a Hall of Famer, an NFL champion, and the first player to rush for 200 yards in a game. Stephen Davis made 2 Pro Bowls in Washington and had the 2nd most rushing yards in the league from 1999 to 2001.
Griffin under center, gives to Morris. No place to go, fighting into the end zone. Touchdown, Redskins.
Rookie Alfred Morris ran for a team record 1,613 yards in 2012. He had 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons to begin his career. Known for the fumble, Ernest Biner recovered with back-to-back Pro Bowls in 90 and 91. Terry Allen gained over 3,000 yards from scrimmage and scored 32 touchdowns from 1995 to 96. George Rogers paced the league with 18 rushing scores in 1986, winning a Lombardi the following year. And in that contest, it was one-game wonder Timmy Smith who set a Super Bowl record with 204 yards in a Washington victory. Number 12, the New York Giants, number 1 overall pick, NFL champion, Hall of Famer, pretty amazing career for the great Frank Gifford.
Now, Gifford shows why he became the all-time Giant ground gainer. After blocks by Denson Brown, stylish striding Giff goes 78 yards.
He still holds the record for most touchdowns in team history. Gifford was named to 8 Pro Bowls during his 13-year Giants career, including at 3 different positions: running back, receiver, and defensive back. He led the NFL in yards from scrimmage in New York's 1956 championship season.
Back in at right end for the Cardinals. Barber slipping a couple of people, tries the other side. The chase is on. Barber heading for the corner. Touchdown!
The Giants' all-time leading rusher is none other than Tiki Barber. He also ranks second with 68 total touchdowns. No player in the NFL had more total yards than Barber from 2000 to 2006. And talk about finishing strong, Tiki had at least 1,200 rushing yards in each of his last 5 seasons. Rodney Hampton set the tone for the G-men in the early 90s. 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons from 91 to 95.
Hampton hits the carry. To the races. Hampton still on his feet. Rodney Hampton, touchdown Giants.
Only Emmett and Barry had more total rushing touchdowns in that stretch. Hampton ranks top 3 in rushing yards and touchdowns in Giants history. Tuffy Lehman's, great name for a running back, was the number 2 pick in the first ever NFL draft. He led the NFL in rushing yards as a rookie and went on to have a Hall of Fame career. Ken Strong, also in Canton. He scored 17 points in the 1934 NFL Championship game, a record that stood for 20 years. Joe Morris won Super Bowl 21 with New York. He had 36 touchdowns from 1985 to 86, most in the NFL. We all know Saquon Barkley, the 2018 Offensive Rookie of the Year, 2 Pro Bowls and 4 seasons with at least 1,200 total yards. Big Brandon Jacobs is a 2-time champ and the team's all-time leader in rushing touchdowns. And finally, there's Otis Anderson, MVP of Super Bowl 25 and a member of 2 championship teams in New York. Number 11, the Detroit Lions.
Got it away to Barry off the right. Barry to the 45 and bumps to the 40, breaks it 35, 30. He's gone! Unbelievable! Touchdown, Lions, Barry Sanders. When we talk about Barry, we say that's the greatest run, that's the greatest run. That might have been the greatest run. That was unbelievable.
One of the greatest players to ever set foot on an NFL field, Barry Sanders was as equally productive as he was exhilarating. A 10-time Pro Bowler and 6-time All-Pro, Sanders rushed for 1,500 yards in 5 different seasons, the only player to accomplish that feat. He won Offensive Rookie of the Year in 1989, co-MVP in 1997, and earned 4 rushing titles. Barry is also a member of the 2,000-yard rushing club and retired at the top of his game in 1998, 10 absolutely thrilling seasons.
Cuts upfield, hurdles over a couple of people.
Oh my goodness, did you see that? He hit Steve Brown with what looked like a karate kick.
Before Sanders donned the iconic number 20 in Motown, there was Billy Sims. The number 1 overall pick in the 1980 draft, Sims' impact was felt right away. He led the league with 16 touchdowns in his first season, winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. Sims accumulated over 3,800 yards from scrimmage and 31 scores in his first 2 campaigns. But a devastating knee injury ended his career midway through the 1984 season. What could have been?
Walker's uncanny ability to produce big plays made him a mythic figure.
What couldn't Doak Walker do? The Hall of Famer charted stats in passing, rushing, receiving, defense, punting, kicking, and returning. Walker won 2 NFL titles with the Lions and even kicked the game-winning extra point in the 1953 championship game. He was named All-Pro in 4 of his 6 NFL seasons, a legend indeed. Number 10, the Buffalo Bills. USC Heisman Trophy winner O.J. Simpson was the first overall pick in the 1969 NFL Draft. In 1973, he became the first player to rush for 2,000 yards in a season, and that was when they played just 14 games.
O.J. Simpson, who just set a new National Football League record of 261 yards in a game.
But 1975 was his best statistical season, amassing over 2,200 yards from scrimmage and 23 touchdowns. Simpson led the league in rushing 4 times in a 5-year span. He retired second all-time in career rushing yards. From one MVP to another, as Thurman Thomas won the award in 1991, he's the club's all-time rushing leader and led the NFL in yards from scrimmage in 4 straight seasons.
Gives to Thomas. And Thurman breaking tackles at the 22, inside the 10, touchdown Buffalo.
Thomas played in 21 playoff games, including 4 Super Bowls. The Hall of Famer averaged just under 2,000 total yards per season from 1989 to 1992, truly one of the best to ever play in Buffalo. Joe Cribbs began his Bills career red hot, over 1,600 yards from scrimmage and 10-plus touchdowns in 3 of his first 4 seasons.
So Cribbs goes deep down the sideline. He can bust it all the way.
Cribbs made 3 Pro Bowls in Buffalo and led the league in rushing yards per game in 1982. The always consistent Fred Jackson played 8 years in West New York. He's 3rd on Buffalo's all-time rushing list and produced 5 seasons with 1,000 total yards. Shady McCoy made 3 Pro Bowls in just 4 seasons with the Bills, over 5,000 yards from scrimmage in that span. Travis Henry had over 3,200 total yards and 25 touchdowns from 2002 to 2003. Baby beast mode, Marshawn Lynch had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons to start his career. First-round pick Willis McGahee came back from a gruesome knee injury, making a successful run with Buffalo in the mid-2000s. Number 9, the San Francisco 49ers.
On a give, Gore, the all-time leading rusher for the Niners, stiff arm. Gore cuts it inside. Frank Gore is still going. Touchdown, San Francisco.
He's the most productive runner in team history and sits 3rd in all-time rushing yards among NFL backs. Frank Gore was never the flashiest, never the loudest, but he made a career out of pounding the rock. 8 seasons with 1,000 rushing yards. In fact, no player in the league had more yards on the ground than Gore from 2006 to 2014. Canton will be calling soon.
Hold on to your seats for this play, folks, for it'll be a long time before you see another like it. Goes barreling down the sidelines, hops into the end zone.
The first African-American player to be named MVP, Joe the Jet Perry, was sensational with the 49ers. A member of San Francisco's million-dollar backfield, Perry became the first player ever to rush for 1,000 yards in back-to-back seasons. He played in 3 different decades, almost unheard of for a running back. The Hall of Famer is still the Niners' all-time leader in rushing touchdowns. Perry retired second only to Jim Brown in all-time rushing yards.
Roger Craig still on his feet, still running. What a run by Roger Craig. You'll never see a better one than that.
San Fran's back of the 80s was Roger Craig, and where would they be without his versatility? Fitting perfectly in Bill Walsh's West Coast offense, Craig would become the first player ever with 1,000 rushing and receiving yards in the same season. He won Offensive Player of the Year in 1988 and was a member of 3 Super Bowl teams in San Francisco. The number of studs who lined up in a 49er backfield is absurd, so buckle up. Hall of Famer Hugh McElhaney gained close to 7,000 total yards in 9 seasons, sharing the ball with Perry. Pro Bowler Garrison Hurst produced perhaps the greatest run in team history, walking it off on an epic OT score back in 1998.
That is the longest run from scrimmage in the history of the San Francisco 49ers, and it wins on opening day here in 3Com Park.
Ricky Watters made the Pro Bowl every year he played with the 49ers. He won a Super Bowl in 1994. Ken Willard was one of only 2 players in the league with 8,000 total yards from 1965 to 1973. And that brings us to Christian McCaffrey, who won Offensive Player of the Year for them with 21 touchdowns in 2023. Number 8, the Green Bay Packers.
Back to the ball. Jimmy Taylor off the right side finds daylight.
When you have a fullback such as Jim Taylor, the fans, especially Green Bay fans, consider him, of course, a real powerhouse, which he is.
He's got the block. He's inside the 10. He's at the 5. Cuts into the end zone for the touchdown.
Gold jackets abound in this group of Packer backs. We'll start with Jim Taylor, the NFL MVP in 1962. Mastering Vince Lombardi's patented sweep run, Taylor scored 71 touchdowns from 1960 to 1964, most in the league. He was a member of 4 NFL championship teams in Green Bay and still ranks first all-time in franchise rushing scores. Taylor's Hall of Fame teammate Paul Hornung won MVP in 1961. Paired with Taylor, this lethal 1-2 punch set a new standard for running back duos. Hornung was named All-Pro twice, including in 1960 when he led the NFL with 15 touchdowns. He's third all-time in Packers history with 50 rushing TDs. A few decades later came Ahman Green, a vastly underrated back in the aughts. Green is the franchise leader in rushing yards and made 4 straight Pro Bowls from 2000 to 2003.
Breaks out of the pack, and Ahman Green. He was stopped and kept going.
He still holds the club single-season record with 1,883 rushing yards in 2003. Green hit the 1,000-yard mark in 6 of 7 seasons with the Pack. Shifting gears to another old-school legend, we have Tony Canadeo, the gray ghost of Gonzaga. The 9th-round pick turned Hall of Famer was the 3rd player ever to rush for 1,000 yards in a season. Before Canadeo, there was Clark Hinkle, another legend enshrined in Canton. Hinkle was the Green Bay version of Bronco Nagurski, winning 2 NFL titles.
2nd and 7. Big running lane, and Jones takes off into the secondary. And now sprinting down the sideline. Wiggles past McLeod, and he's all the way to the end zone.
Aaron Jones amassed over 8,000 total yards from scrimmage in his 7 seasons with the Packers. John Brockington ranked 2nd in rushing yards, only behind O.J. from 1971 to 1973. And can't forget Dorsey Levens, who won a Super Bowl with the Pack in 1996. He had 2 seasons with over 1,600 total yards. Number 7, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Looking for somebody to throw to. Fires it downfield. And there's a collision. That's caught out of the air. The ball is pulled in by Franco Harris. Harris is going for a touchdown for Pittsburgh. Franco Harris pulled in the football. I don't even know where it came from.
The author of arguably the greatest play in NFL history gets lead billing here. Franco Harris won Offensive Rookie of the Year in 1972 and rattled off 6 straight 1,000-yard seasons. The Steelers have enjoyed a ton of success over the years, no more so than in the 70s though. Franco helped Pittsburgh to 4 Super Bowl wins and scored 100 career touchdowns in the black and gold, most of any player in team history.
They played a tremendous game so far against the Bears.
2nd down and goal, they go to Bettis again. Bettis gets hit, still driving, touchdown! They said it could be a Jerome Bettis kind of day, and it is his 2nd touchdown here.
The bus trails only Harris in career rushing yards and touchdowns in Steelers history. Jerome Bettis made 4 Pro Bowls in the Steel City and had 6 straight 1,000-yard seasons from 1996 to 2001. He would retire on top, winning Super Bowl 40 in his hometown of Detroit. A bit of a drop-off as we get to Le'Veon Bell, but make no mistake, he had a superb 5-year stretch in Pittsburgh.
Le'Veon Bell, the cut. Bell breaks a tackle. Bell trying to go all the way. Le'Veon Bell, touchdown, Steelers!
Bell averaged 129 yards from scrimmage per game in his Steelers career, 3 Pro Bowl and 2 All-Pro selections to boot. He was lethal in the pass game, catching 75 passes in 3 different seasons. From 2013 to 2017, he had more total catches than Mike Evans, Rob Gronkowski, and Travis Kelce. Fast Willie Parker still owns the longest run in Super Bowl history.
You're going to see Parker bursting one over the right side. They call him Fast Willie Parker. And Fast Willie Parker has just gone 75 yards for a touchdown.
He also had 3 straight seasons with 1,200 rushing yards from 2005 to 2007. Hall of Famer John Henry Johnson made 3 Pro Bowls with the Steelers in the 60s. Rocky Bleier was a key member of those 70s Steelers, paving the way for Franco Harris. He had over 1,000 rushing yards in 1976. We should also mention Barry Foster, who exploded with almost 1,700 rushing yards in 1992, good enough for a second-place MVP finish. Number 6, the Indianapolis Colts. With a quartet of Hall of Famers in the running back room, it's no wonder the Colts rank this high.
It's very apparent that Dick Lynch is covering him man for man. How long he can do that remains to be seen. Unitas is back. Unitas throws. Moore goes for a touchdown. A magnificent pass pattern with Johnny Unitas. Moore scored the touchdown.
Do-it-all back Lenny Moore is one of only 4 players in NFL history with 5,000 rushing and receiving yards. He was named All-Pro 5 times and won 2 NFL championships. Moore retired with 113 career touchdowns, second most all-time.
Here's Manning. That's going to be well out of bounds. Oh, James, what a catch.
Edgerrin James hit the ground running with the Colts, teamed up with Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison. The young trio turned the tide in Indy. James won Offensive Rookie of the Year in 1999 and led the league in rushing in each of his first 2 seasons. Edge is the Colts' all-time leader in rushing yards and touchdowns. We'll travel back to the 70s now and spotlight Lydell Mitchell.
Given a little room, an innocent flare pass was a dangerous Colt weapon, for Mitchell runs with power, and one man is usually not enough to stop him.
Like Moore, Mitchell was a big-time threat in the pass game. In fact, he led the entire NFL in catches in 2 separate seasons. Mitchell racked up 1,700 total yards every year from 1975 to 1977, as productive as it gets. Only Franco Harris and O.J. Simpson touched the ball more throughout the 1970s. Marshall Faulk was a thrilling young playmaker who still ranks 3rd all-time in franchise rushing yards. The 1994 Offensive Rookie of the Year would make 3 Pro Bowls in 5 years with Indy.
45-40, 35-30, 25-20, 15-10. They call it a touchdown.
He gained over 8,000 total yards in 77 games with the Colts. From a future Ram to a former Ram, Eric Dickerson also played a handful of years in the Hoosier State. A little past his prime, Dickerson still won the NFL rushing title in 1988. He totaled over 6,200 yards in 61 games with the club.
Chandler will give to Dickerson off the left side, cuts up the middle, 35-30, 25, 20, 50, 10, 5, touchdown Eric!
2-time NFL champ Alan Amici scored the winning touchdown in the greatest game ever played. And fun fact, did you know Tom Matte invented the QB wristband? Long story, but look it up. He also had the most total yards and tied for the league lead in touchdowns in 1969. Jonathan Taylor has been tearing it up for the Colts since 2020. He led the league in rushing in 2021, scoring 20 touchdowns in the process. Shout out to Joseph Adai, who won a Super Bowl as a rookie in 2006. He put up over 2,800 total yards and 23 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons. Number 5, the Tennessee Titans.
10-3 Los Angeles, and here goes Earl Campbell. He knocked Robertson on his back.
Watch out! Beautiful, beautiful.
5. Oh, what a runner.
One of the most iconic players in league history, Earl Campbell was a force back in his days as a Houston Oiler. The Tyler Rose came into the NFL and won Offensive Rookie of the Year and Player of the Year. He followed that up with an MVP trophy in 1979. No back in the league had more yards or touchdowns on the ground than Campbell from 1978 to 1983. Dominant in every sense.
Gives it to Henry. Henry bounces it outside. 5, 10, 15, stiff arm, 20, 25, 30, 40, stiff arm, 50, 40, 30. He's on his feet. Big chase, 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Titans, 99 yards!
Tied for the longest run in NFL history, King Henry is also a member of the exclusive 2K Club. He led the league in rushing twice, winning Offensive Player of the Year in 2020. At 6'3" and almost 250 pounds, Henry was downright scary when he got the ball. He made 3 Pro Bowls in Tennessee, pacing all NFL players in rushing yards and touchdowns from 2016 to 2022.
2nd and goal. George again. George breaking tackles into the end zone.
The only back in franchise history to start a Super Bowl, Eddie George helped reshape the franchise in the late 90s. The former Heisman winner won Offensive Rookie of the Year in 1996, going on to become the team's all-time leading rusher. George was an absolute workhorse, leading the NFL in total carries from 96 to 2003. He had 1,000 rushing yards in 7 of his 8 seasons with the Titans.
On the move now. Pitch. Johnson trying to get him to the outside. Johnson doubles back the other way. Chris Johnson has some room to work with. Good block by Young on the near side, and Johnson able to turn it upfield, and he goes all the way. Terrific individual effort by Chris Johnson.
CJ2K, the first Tennessee back to rush for 2,000 in a single season, one of the fastest players in league history. Chris Johnson had at least 1,600 total yards in each of his first 6 seasons. He won Offensive Player of the Year in 2009, racking up 2,509 yards from scrimmage, a record that still stands today. Fullback Hoyle Granger had the most total yards in the AFL from 1967 to 1969. Mike Rozier and Lorenzo White overlapped for the Oilers in the late 80s. Rozier made 2 Pro Bowls in Houston, while White played in 7 playoff games and had close to 1,900 total yards in 1992. Number 4, the Cleveland Browns.
Gives to Jim Brown. He gets away to the right side. He gets a block from Hickerson. Jim Brown to the 20. Jim Brown is in for the touchdown.
Arguably the greatest to ever play the running back position, or any position for that matter, Jim Brown revolutionized the game of football. He was simply bigger, stronger, and faster than the competition. In 9 NFL seasons, Brown led the league in rushing 8 times, being named first-team All-Pro in each. He was a 3-time NFL MVP and the only rookie ever to win the award.
Considered by most experts as the greatest fullback ever to play the game, Jimmy's harder to bring down than a wild steer.
Brown retired with the most rushing yards and touchdowns in league history. Leroy Kelly had the tall task of replacing Brown, and to say he knocked it out of the park would be an understatement.
In 1967, Leroy Kelly was most often seen with a ball cradled in his arm, single-handedly demoralizing, if not demolishing, his opponent.
Transitioning from return man, Kelly led the NFL in rushing twice and made 3 All-Pro teams. From 1966 to 1973, there may not have been a better running back. He led the league in rushing and total touchdowns in that stretch. How often do we see one Hall of Famer replace another? A current Brown is making a name for himself among all-time franchise greats.
Full adversity there on that first kick.
First carry of the game for Nick Chubb. Chubb is inside the 30, the 20, all the way, 63 yards, the rookie out of Georgia.
Nick Chubb already ranks 3rd all-time in rushing touchdowns among all Cleveland backs. The 4-time Pro Bowler gained 1,000 yards on the ground in 4 of his first 5 campaigns. Chubb had the 2nd most rushing yards and touchdowns in the league from 2018 to 2022. Not only is Marion Motley a Hall of Famer, but he's also one of the most impactful players to ever play the sport. A member of the Forgotten Four, Motley helped reintegrate pro football in 1946. He was a 4-time AAFC champion and was at his best when the Browns entered the NFL in 1950.
Motley tops his helmet to the crowd as he jogs over the goal line to give the Browns a 17-0 lead.
Motley led the league in rushing yards and helped Cleveland win the championship. 5.7 career yards per carry, too. The Pruitts, unrelated, were fantastic in the 70s and 80s. Mike Pruitt rushed for 1,000 yards in 4 different seasons, while Greg Pruitt made 4 Pro Bowls. Before he broke out as a receiver in Washington, Bobby Mitchell played running back at a high level for the Browns. He totaled close to 6,000 all-purpose yards from 1958 to 1961. Only his teammate Jim Brown had more. We'll throw in Kevin Mack, who played in 3 AFC title games with the Browns. Mack made 2 Pro Bowls, scoring 54 career touchdowns with the team. Number 3, the Dallas Cowboys. America's team has a proud history of elite running backs, none better than this one.
Aikman handoff, Smith coming right, trying to outrun the coverage, makes a cut, gets it. Oh, he's still going. He's going to score. He's got the 5. It's a touchdown. Emmitt Smith, and it's absolutely ridiculous. It should never have happened, but Emmitt Smith does the impossible, this time from 29 yards out.
There aren't enough words to describe Smith's Hall of Fame career. His consistency at the position is unmatched. 11 straight seasons with 1,000 rushing yards. His durability is unquestioned. Smith missed just 5 games due to injury in his Cowboys career, and he's as decorated as they get. 1990 Offensive Rookie of the Year, 1993 MVP, 8 Pro Bowls, 4-time rushing champion, and 3 Lombardi trophies.
How sweet it is.
And if that's not enough, he's still the all-time leader in rushing yards and touchdowns.
Big opening for Tony Dorsett. Look out, he's got great speed.
99 yards and a half.
Dorsett down the sideline. Stays in bounds.
Can you believe that?
Tony Dorsett is the Cowboys' second leading rusher, producing 8 seasons with 1,000 yards on the ground. The former Heisman winner won Offensive Rookie of the Year in 1977, helping Dallas win Super Bowl 12. Dorsett played 11 years with the Cowboys, eventually going to the Hall of Fame in 1994.
It's Elliott! Elliott for the touchdown!
Ezekiel Elliott's remarkable rookie season helped Dallas finish with a 13-3 record. Zeke led the league with over 1,600 rushing yards in 2016. 2 years later, he won another rushing title. In fact, no player in the NFL had more yards on the ground from 2016 to 2021. Elliott is third in franchise history in rushing yards and touchdowns. We told you the Cowboys had quality at the position, so try and keep up here. Don Perkins made 6 Pro Bowls and played in 2 NFL championships with Dallas in the 60s. DeMarco Murray was the 2014 Offensive Player of the Year, leading the league with over 1,800 rushing yards.
Cuts it to the inside, and Murray to the end zone. Touchdown, Dallas.
Those who were lucky enough to watch Marion Barber know what a beast he was. Calvin Hill was the 1969 Offensive Rookie of the Year and ranks top 5 in team rush yards. Herschel Walker was phenomenal in Dallas, racking up 5,200 yards from scrimmage in his first 3 seasons. And finally, the powerful Walt Garrison helped get the Cowboys to 2 Super Bowls in the 70s. Number 2, the Los Angeles Rams. You can't deny the running back greatness in this team's history, starting with Marshall Faulk, the 2000 MVP. After getting traded from the Colts in his prime, Faulk went on an absolute tear.
Marshall Faulk. And Faulk, look at the move. Marshall Faulk.
Over 10,000 yards from scrimmage from 1999 to 2004, most in the NFL. Faulk set a then single-season record with 26 touchdowns in 2000. He was named Offensive Player of the Year 3 times and produced 4 seasons with over 2,000 total yards, tied for the most ever.
Barber and Hill pitches back to Dickerson. A lone setback. And he cuts back. Got some good yardage. Dickerson can run. Eric Dickerson still going. Dickerson will go.
1983 Offensive Rookie of the Year, Eric Dickerson was a man amongst boys from the start. In just his second season, he set a single-season rushing record that still stands today. Speaking of records, Dickerson's 248 rush yards in the 1985 divisional round are still the most ever in a playoff game.
Hey, man, I'm going to tell you something. They call that play, I think it's going to be a touchdown.
He gained over 7,200 yards on the ground in just 65 games with the Rams and was the 1986 Offensive Player of the Year.
Just before the play clock expires, it's Jackson again on the quick pass. First down, St. Louis. He spins away from tacklers. Down the sideline, Steven Jackson.
No one wanted to tackle Steven Jackson. Perhaps the most physically imposing of all Rams runners, Jackson had the difficult task of replacing Faulk in the mid-2000s. All he did next was become the team's all-time rushing leader. From 2004 to 2012, Jackson led all NFL players in total rushing yards. He was at his peak in 2006 when he amassed over 2,300 yards from scrimmage.
And now on first down, Goff looking to Gurley. And he will leapfrog a defender, and oh my goodness for Gurley.
From 2017 to 2018, there was no better running back in football than Todd Gurley. He scored 40 touchdowns in that stretch, leading the Rams all the way to Super Bowl 53. Gurley was the 2017 Offensive Player of the Year. He scored 70 touchdowns in just 73 career games with the Rams. Lawrence McCutcheon made 5 Pro Bowls during a great Rams era in the 70s. He had the second most rush yards in the league from 1973 to 1977. Before he was the bust, Jerome Bettis was the Rookie of the Year in LA. He totaled almost 3,000 yards in his first 2 seasons. Number 1, the Chicago Bears. Okay, we've reached the pinnacle. The team with the greatest collection of running backs in NFL lore helps to have over 100 years of history, of course.
Peyton. Oh, Peyton still on his feet. Is Walter Peyton.
Another piece of art.
It's no shock we start with sweetness. Walter Payton rewrote the record books in his 13 years with the Bears. Before retiring as the game's all-time leading rusher, Payton helped Chicago capture its first and only Super Bowl victory. He won MVP in 1977 and gained 1,200 yards on the ground in 10 different seasons. Payton truly did it all. The 5-time All-Pro still leads the club in all-time catches as well. He has a strong case to be called the GOAT.
That's Gale Sayers on the 15-yard line. You can see him breaking away from that tackler. And watch the moves here. The quick move of Gale Sayers. He's off 85 yards for a touchdown. Looking over his shoulder. His 6th touchdown of the game. He has just broken the National Football League touchdown record.
The Kansas Comet gave us the greatest debut season in league history. In 1965, Gale Sayers led the NFL with close to 2,300 all-purpose yards and 22 touchdowns, still a rookie record. Sayers was named All-Pro in each of his first 5 seasons and won 2 NFL rushing titles. While he played just 7 seasons, Sayers was still a first-ballot Hall of Famer. Matt Forte may not make it to Canton, but don't forget how productive this guy was in the Windy City.
Hand off to Forte. And Forte picks up another first down and more. He is inside the 10 and will take it in for a Bears touchdown, 32 yards.
That's the whole package right there.
Forte had the most yards from scrimmage in the league from 2008 to 2015, spanning his entire Bears career. Only Payton has caught more passes in team history. That goes for receivers, too. Forte gained over 1,200 total yards in every season. You can't tell the story of this iconic franchise without some Hall of Famers of yesteryear. The Galloping Ghost, Red Grange, was the NFL's first big-time college signing in 1925. He won 2 league titles with the Bears. Bronco Nagurski, one of the game's great power backs, played both offense and defense, winning 3 NFL championships. George McAfee was an all-purpose star. He also won 3 titles in Chicago, scoring 36 touchdowns and picking off 25 passes. Not in Canton, but still one of the club's best backs, we'll go to Neil Anderson. He ranks top 3 in Bears history in both rushing yards and touchdowns.
Show a 4-man rush, and it's a 4-man rush they're coming. Over the middle goes P.T. Willis, hits Anderson, cutting left to the 20 to the 15, breaks a tackle to the 10 to the 5, touchdown!
Anderson scored 60 total touchdowns from 1988 to 1992, second only to Jerry Rice. Rick Caceres made 5 Pro Bowls and led the NFL in rushing in 1956. And finally, we go all the way back to Beatty Feathers, who in 1934 became the first player to ever rush for 1,000 yards in a season. So there you have it. Who did we miss? Could our order be different? Drop us a line in the comments section. As always, a huge thank you for sticking around.